All right, here we are working on this pump mount still. And I'm kind of glad that I took a little break because reading some posts on Red Square, I read and was reminded that this engine is tilted back for some part of like an optimum driveline angle or whatever the case may be. So if I would have just made my mount bracket at a 90, I probably would have been in trouble with belts flying off. So I've got my handy dandy angle finder that I used on that tubing bender video, building the roll cage for the golf cart. So I'm going to turn this on and set it in there and find my zero. And it is actually zero. It's hard to see. But then I can set it up here on top of the air cleaner and see that it's 7.5 degrees. All right. And so now when I have that up on the welding bench, I know that I need to set my angle for that pulley right there at 7.5 degrees and work from there. And since I took off this exhaust shield and some of the body tins on the tractor, I can actually see that belt just to the right of the exhaust right there. And so that way what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mock up the bracket and then kind of sit it in there with the pump all assembled and everything, so I know pretty much exactly where to weld it. Well, this is what I came up with, and it's sitting at that 7.5 degree angle, which is pretty dang good considering I cut those pieces there with my metal cutting saw and just use this speed square / protractor to find my angle, and I'm at 7.6 degrees, which the angle finder was kind of bouncing between 7.5 and 7.6 when I checked the angle of the engine. So 7.6 degrees is right on. As you can see right there in that slot, I've got about maybe an inch or so of adjustment before I hit the tabs on the bolts. And if I were to put the angled bracket on the inside or the other side of the pump bracket, then it'll just hit the pump. So that's pretty much what I've got for adjustability. It'll be just finding a belt that fits well. So I found an issue doing my my fitment mock-up. I'm just using that magnet to kind of hold things in place, but I have this little shake. It doesn't look like a whole bunch until you compound and there's like close to an 1/8 inch of movement at the top of that pulley. So I'm trying to kind of eyeball from here to the center of that, and obviously the pulley sizes are a little bit different. So I've been using a straight edge and just riding it back and forth on both sides of the pulley and trying to find my center. But I don't know what I'm going to do as far as addressing that. I think that's pretty critical. I don't want to throw a belt just because of that little rock. But my thought process is that this can lift up in the front or drop down because of the weight. And my guess is that it'll be in this stationary position because the belt will be tight and kind of pulling the back side of that mule drive bracket up. That's my guess. So I'm just kind of winging it based on that assumption. I realize that we're dealing with a very limited sight but I'm thinking that's pretty dang close to being straight in line, both sides. I opted to run the pump as close to in line as possible as far as the center line, even though the engine on these is offset. So you can kind of see it's further to the left side of the tractor than it is to the right side of the tractor. And so I kind of just dropped a plumb bob, we'll say, as in the form of a ruler, just off the bottom of that pulley, and said, yeah, that looks like about center line. So I could have moved over a little further, but otherwise it's in good shape. Now that everything seems to be fitting well, I am going to pull this apart. I have to finish welding this entire perimeter of this bottom plate, and then also weld the bracket here. But as you can see, there's a lip where this plate and that pulley end up interfering, and I could adjust it to the point where it binds. I thought about maybe cutting that out or notching it, but I have close to an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch of adjustment, and that's enough to pull the pump up, get the belt underneath it, and still tension it, just with a belt that I found laying around. So I have a feeling that with a with a belt that's appropriately sized, that amount of adjustment will be plenty, and this will actually help protect that pulley from debris and garbage or branches getting into that pump belt.